Yeah, I have a story for you. The story of a boy's first camping trip, only to be dragged out of his tent into the night by a black bear, and a 22-year-old camp counselor that gave that thing the fight of its life. Algonquin Provincial Park. This one Canadian provincial park has had more people killed by black bear than every national park in North America by a factor of 3. The only U.S. state that has one more person killed by black bear is the entire state of Alaska. One lake in particular, Lake Opeongo, was a hotspot for what authorities would say were predatory black bear attacks. July 15, 1997. Nicholas Aikens was 11 years old, and like many kids in Ontario, Canada, he was enjoying his summer break, his first camping trip to Lake Opeongo in Algonquin Park. Nicholas and 7 other boys were chaperoned by 2 young camp counselors, Mike and Michelle. They paddled 4 hours up Lake Opeongo and were tent camping in the backcountry. After a very long day, everybody was asleep in their tents. The counselors in their tent, and the boys in their tents. But little did they know that a black bear was stalking them that night. 1 a.m. came, and the black bear attacked and trampled the counselor's tent. Then moved over to Nicholas's tent, slashed open the side of it, and grabbed him, dragged him out of his sleeping bag and across the rocky ground. The 22-year-old counselor, Mike Hildebrand, decided to give that thing the fight of his life. He slashed open his own tent with his knife. Armed with a headlamp and bear spray, he sprayed the bear, but to no avail. He quickly changed plan, saw a canoe paddle, grabbed it, and struck that bear as hard as he could. The bear stood on its hind legs and turned his attention to Mike. He was yelling to Nicholas, "Go, Nicholas, go!" Nicholas, barely conscious, heard his voice and crawled over to Michelle, who was gathering him and all of the other boys to the canoes to make their escape. Mike swung again with all of his might and connected with the bear's head, breaking the canoe paddle in the process. The bear, dismayed, ran up a tree nearby and huffed and aggressively called while Mike held a flashlight on him in the tree. Michelle gathered everyone finally and was ready to shove off. Mike then ran into the canoes and joined them, and everybody went into the pitch darkness of Lake Opeongo to paddle back to civilization. Nicholas had many puncture wounds and was bleeding profusely. Finally, when they reached shore, they got Nicholas to Barry's Bay, where by happenstance, a very good doctor was there to doctor his wounds. Mike and Michelle described what happened to the authorities, and an evacuation of Lake Opeongo began. There's been multiple mass killings of so-called black bears before, and the authorities were taking no chances with this one. Nicholas's sister was actually on the same lake that day. She said helicopters flew over Lake Opeongo and warned them that evacuation boats will be there to pick them up. They had no idea what was going on. Not much is known why they chose to evacuate the lake instead of immediately engaging this black bear. What we do know is that the boys and the camp counselors probably arrived at shore between 5 and 6 in the morning. By 8 a.m., the evacuation had begun, and by the time they engaged the black bear, it was 8 p.m. at night. The victim's mother described in an article in Peak magazine that the officials reached where the bear attacked Nicholas, and it was still there, scratching at the ground where he attacked Nicholas. The authorities shot and killed the bear. The bear was found to have a yellow tag in its ear and was part of a program in 1994 where they tranquilized and documented the bears. Back then, the bear was 3 years old and just over 100 pounds. They noted that this was an unusually docile black bear. Dan Strickland, Algonquin Park's chief wildlife biologist, said that the campsite was laid waste by the bear after it came down from the tree. As Nicholas went from hospital to hospital and surgery to surgery, that black bear was studied by the authorities. It was studied by the University of Guelph, and its brain was sent to Ottawa. Rabies was not a factor. Starvation was not a factor. Just like the other two bears, no external factor caused this type of behavior. But it was darn close to the same age and the same weight as the others. Mike Hildebrand was honored as a hero. He was given the Medal of Bravery. If this goes down as the final battle between humans and the black bears of Lake Opeongo, then Mike delivered us victory. He stopped that bear from making Nicholas the 7th victim in that park. And if that bear was anything like the last two, he would have taken more than just Nicholas. Almost everyone survives a trip to Algonquin Park. And because that's true, the experts tell us to move on with life and to worry about lightning more than something that'll eat you alive. What is it about this place? Why do 1 in a million events keep happening in the same area over and over? Why do we have the most serial killer bears? And why does this park have more black bear victims per square mile than anywhere in North America, including places and parks with far more people and far more black bears? Should we believe that these 1 in a million attacks keep happening again and again in the same place by the most vicious, ferocious, and lethal black bears the continent has ever seen? Or should we believe that there's more going on there than they're telling us?